All right guys, so today we're gonna get into how to set up your training rifle. Now, going about this, I'm gonna go through it the same way we kind of approached our plate carrier video. There's gonna be a link in the description to go back to that. Setting up a rifle is all subjective to you. There's a million ways to set up a training rifle. In this video, we're gonna mostly touch on why I set mine up the way I did and then what I was looking to get out of this rifle in particular. But just remember that this process needs to be tailored to you. We're gonna throw a few nuggets in here that's gonna help you guys kind of guide you on your path to setting up a rifle maybe for yourself as well. To get really into this, the only thing that a rifle that you're setting up needs to do 100% across the board for everybody is that it needs to be reliable and needs to put bullets where you want them to go. That is the only two boxes you need to check. Outside of that, there's gonna be some delineation that we have to go through. So first and foremost, getting into your why. What is the why of setting up your training rifle? Are you setting it up for hunting? Are you setting it up for duty? Are you setting it up for home defense? Maybe night vision use or low light use? These are all things to keep in mind when you're going down this path. So I think it's also fair to bring up that you can still build a training rifle that can fulfill multiple roles, right? Like this rifle is suitable for duty, okay, but it's also a great training rifle for a handful of purposes that we'll get into here in a little bit. Now, the things that I like to keep in mind for a training rifle, in particular, a sighting system of some kind. So for that may be iron sights for you, that may be an optic for you. I believe every rifle should have a sling, okay? Having a good sling is just like having a good holster for a pistol, and then it needs a weapon light. If you don't have a weapon light on your rifle, I feel like it's only good for half a day and only in certain situations. Now that being said, a training rifle doesn't really need a weapon light, right? You might not be training at night, you might be training during daytime hours when most ranges allow it. However, for me, training is both day and night. I run a training company, and we do a lot of different things at night, low light, and then also night vision, hence the Chinese EMPEC 15, okay? Just to keep these things in mind, like it can fulfill multiple roles. It's not like you can only just build one rifle for training and that's all its purpose is. If it's a quality built rifle, it can technically be used for duty as well. And that duty word means different things for different folks, okay? So for a civilian, it might mean like home protection, or for a cop, it might be like a patrol rifle or something like that. So you guys have seen me on the channel for a while now. I have a handful of different rifles that I've been using for training, you know, going all the way from my Radian Mod 1 to a Jack carbine to maybe the MP5. Like there's a bunch of different platforms I use. When I started getting into this one, there was a handful of reasons why I wanted to start maybe trying some things differently. One, most of the mounts I've been running lately on rifles have been a 193 or higher, and I wanted to come back to a lower 1/3 like this EOTech. I also want a gun that's gonna give me more recoil, and I know that might sound really weird to some people, but I want a gun that's gonna really challenge my fundamentals, like really challenge grip, because I feel like grip is a core fundamental when it comes to shooting rifle. Grip and mount work in conjunction with each other. And when this gas system is all the way open and I'm running a mil-spec trigger, this thing it's thumpy, it's not pleasant to shoot, and that's on purpose. Like I'm really trying to challenge myself here. Now some of you might be asking like, hey man, what made you choose the MCX? Like why specifically this for a training rifle? Okay, like the big bullet points here that I was looking to get out of this gun is I wanted a gun to give me a lot of feedback. I went with the 3-prong flash hider because obviously flash hiders behave way differently than muzzle brakes. This also has an adjustable gas block, okay? So I can open up this thing all the way and make it thumpy as hell, man. Like when shooting this gun, it is heavy, so it tames a little bit of that recoil, but it's running a 3-prong on this with that gas system open. She's a thumpy girl. The other thing is too, is I'm constantly running longer length rifles, like my Radian's a 14.5, the Jack carbine's a 14.5. I'm always like messing around with longer guns. I wanted some time to get behind like a 12.5 length gun or a smaller length gun, which is what this is. And then also, you know, the folding stock piece, again, not a necessary thing, but throwing in a range bag is convenient. Also, this still enables you to put an AR-15 stock on it, so it's not like some folding stocks that SIG sells or some aftermarket people sell that like kind of make the gun harder to shoot because you can't mount it as well with that specific stock. With this particular attachment in the back, I kind of was able to avert that. So that's why I chose this particular platform. And then kind of like really to easily sum this up, I had these two rifles. I had this upper laying around, I had this lower laying around that I both picked up on sale and traded with a buddy. And you know, I figured I made an excuse for myself to build another gun, unfortunately. Now, this being said, there are some nuanced things on here that we're gonna go over. First and foremost, I have like a handful of suppressors, right? So I wanted a suppressor hub. Now, I specifically chose the 3-prong here because this kind of goes without saying, running a muzzle brake on a rifle versus running a 3-prong flash hider, the feedback from that rifle is completely different. When you have a hefty rifle with a muzzle brake, you can basically eat your dinner off that rifle inherently because it's just, the recoil is pretty much non-existent. When you're doing this with a gun that has like maybe a bird cage, a 3-prong flash hider of some kind, you get way more feedback from the gun. You really start figuring out how the gun's behaving and where the dots were returning to. This specific setup, I'm not running suppressed because lately I've had my lead levels checked and they're a bit high, so I have to back off the suppressed shooting for a little while. So this gun I will, for now, be running not suppressed. But however, the really cool thing is there's an adjustable gas block on MCXs, so I can open up the gas all the way, run it not suppressed, or I can throw the can on, turn it to the suppressed setting, and then make the recoil a little bit more bearable. But like I said, trying to keep the lead levels low, so I'm kind of avoiding suppressed shooting right now. Now there's another thing I'm kind of testing as well in this gun, and that's this Somo Gear PEC 15. I think these hit the market like a year or two ago, and I have 2 or 3 full power PECs now, and they're great. However, I got them for a good price, which is why I have them. They're not needed, okay? I have like hollow sun lasers as well, and they perform really good. But I've had some people barking up my tree about trying one of these out, and I was able to pick one up for like 150 bucks. And I was able to use it this weekend at the last night shoot. And I mean, for it being a $150 laser, technically for airsoft, this thing is almost, yeah, it's almost brighter than a full power PEC 15. So I think the question's gonna lie with this is if it's gonna actually hold zero or not, and we'll see over time. On the other side here, I have a Model A OKW head on this. This body is specifically for the 1913 mount. It just fit better on this rifle. And then I have a Surefire tail cap with the push button on the back, and then also it can take a tail switch as well. Now, do you need a light on your training rifle? You certainly don't, okay? But like I said, I do a lot of low light training. So for me, training at night is, you know, it's part of the gig at this point. So it's a necessary add-on for me. And then for the tail switch on the light, I'm using a Unity Tactical Axon. Pretty much the last 2 or 3 years now, I've been running mod buttons that are flat with the rail, just like this one that I'm using for the Somo Gear PEC. But I wanted to try this one. It kind of puts the button up at a 45-degree angle. What I've found is that this ridge along the end here makes it a little bit harder to shoot without clicking the button all the way in. Like if you just want to use pressure and shoot the rifle, sometimes you get a little bit of a flickering effect from your thumb bouncing off the button or just not staying stable against the button. But as of right now, I think it's working great, so I'm gonna hold on to it. This was another thing that I've added new to this gun that I just don't have much experience with. You know, so I figured, hey, I'll throw on a training gun because I'm gonna get plenty of reps with this thing, and then I'll be able to figure out from there if I like it or not. You guys have found, and at least I'm sure some of you have found, that when you throw things on a training rifle, sometimes they'll stay and sometimes they'll go. That's just the nature of the beast sometimes. And you're not gonna find out until you try it for yourself. And then behind that, guys, I just have like a normal mod button I run into the Somo Gear PEC. So as we're still in the front of this gun, there's already a lot you guys can see that I'm like kind of like fooling around with and experimenting with. If you wanna get this crazy with your training, if you wanna get this nitty gritty with it, I think it's a good thing to do. Not everybody's into that, and everyone's looking to get different things out of their training rifle, but again, I'm just trying to point out things to you guys that like I'm specifically looking for and in the weeds kind of stuff as well. Now, you guys also notice in terms of cable management, I have our signature Herrington Arms cable locks here. These are for M-LOK, okay, which is obviously what is on this gun. I found this to be the best way to manage cables on a rifle for a handful of reasons. I have used duct tape before or just like electrical tape, and I have found that like when you really train with a rifle, obviously it gets hot and it kind of shrinks and melts that tape, and then everything just sticks to it. So like dirt, all the cotton in your range bag and stuff like that, it just sticks to it and it's annoying. This is also a very clean setup. It's very clean and professional looking, and I know that's like a very nuanced thing. It's like a minutia thing, but it's what I prefer. You guys will also notice here too, I have an Emissary Development handbrake. These things are great. I have these on 3 or 4 rifles now at this point, and it's a really good leverage point for your pinky, and it's a really good leverage point on the rifle rail. I like the torque that this handbrake can give you to put on the front of the rifle. That being said, like leverage and friction isn't the end-all be-all to recoil mitigation. You still have to be able to pull that rifle into your shoulder or your mounting point and make the rifle predictable, right? As of right now, I might end up taking it off just to try it without it and see what I like without the handbrake. But as of right now, I plan on keeping it there because, well, I like them a lot. Right below it, guys, I'm running this HRF magwell. To me, I don't see the problem in putting magwells on anything, whether it be a pistol or a rifle. If it's helping you mitigate error in a reload, even just by 1%, to me, the upgrade's worth it. And we'll roll in some, B-roll here, but you guys can tell, like, you can be just borderline disrespectful with your reloads and just throw that mag up in there. I mean, it's almost like it's a largemouth bass on the bottom of this gun. Like, you can just chuck the mag up in there and it goes right in there every time. Now, moving back, this is a reticle I don't run, or an optic I don't run very often at all. It's not that I'm not a fan of EOTechs, it's just the battery life is kind of lame. I normally end up changing the batteries out in this thing like every 3 or 4 months. It's not because the optic is bad, it's just because I'm constantly using the rifle. I wanted to come back and revisit it, you know, see if I actually end up wanting to keeping these or not, because if I don't ever want to keep it, if I don't end up keeping it, I'm just going to replace it with an aim point of some kind, or like maybe a hollow sun. As of right now, I do feel like the EOTech reticle is a little bit busy, but it's just because I'm used to using, you know, a singular dot like on an aim point or a hollow sun. So again, you know, throwing some personal preference in here, okay? The other thing I'm running on here is a magnifier. I haven't used one of these in a while, so I wanted to revisit it and see if the juice is actually worth the squeeze. My last, you know, experience with magnifiers was kind of like, you know, like they're good for PID, but outside of that, I feel like they're not necessary to shoot at greater distances, but they do help, okay? What a giant pain is getting these zeroed properly. That's what I found to be the biggest pain so far. So it's essentially like running a 3 times power optic on your rifle. The other thing I'm like kind of with on the magnifier is it hangs off to the side, right? So like there's a lot of this vision part over here on this gun when I have it mounted in my shoulder that's basically blocked because of that. Is it the end of the world? No, it's not, but it's different from what I'm used to, and I do find it kind of annoying right now, but I'm gonna hang on to it and see and just keep using the gun. If the juice is actually worth the squeeze, it will stay on there. If it's not, I will take it off, and that's totally fine. To be fair, we did bring up like long range at the beginning of the video, right, as like maybe one of your philosophies of use. Some of you might be asking like, why aren't you running an LPVO? Again, it just boils down to preference. I feel like LPVOs are okay at everything and are better at some things, obviously, like long distance and maybe PID. But for me, I can get a lot accomplished, a lot done, 0 to 300 meters with a red dot. I'm also not commonly shooting past that super often. I have some precision rifles and stuff that I specifically use to shoot past 300 when I have training days like that. But for this rifle in particular, it's not something I'm looking to get out of the gun. Now, maybe at one point I'll get bored with this, and to experiment a little bit more, I'll throw an LPVO on this and maybe focus on doing more up close nasty stuff with an LPVO, and to kind of get data on how the optic performs at close ranges, because I know how it performs at distance, but it'd be cool to do that, you know, because I'm into this kind of stuff. Maybe cool to do that at closer distances. Now, the other thing you guys will notice, I am not running iron sights on this gun, okay? It's a training rifle. It's also 2025. If you're running reliable sighting systems on your rifle, I don't think that iron sights are completely necessary. That being said, I do have 2 sighting systems on this gun. So like 2 is 1, 1 is none. You know, having 2 sighting systems on a rifle is plenty, okay? So we're good to go there. Now, the nice thing is I also do have an AMB charging handle on this gun. It's just the SIG MCX one from the factory. So that's a nice little touch there. And then I'm also running a B5 system stock. To me, these are like the gold standards for stocks. I've been running Magpul ones for a while, but this is kind of like a smaller rendition of the Crane SOCOM stock. But the Crane one has like way bigger cheek beds on it, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So these smaller ones are right on the money. I am running a Driven Arms Co. grip, great company, ran by a great dude. I have these on pretty much every training rifle or duty rifle that I have. These are phenomenal. I'm also running the Radiant selectors here. These are great. They're AMB. They are very tactile when you click them on, like when you click the gun off safe and then on safe. And they're just great all around. They're also very modular. You can switch the longer one to the other side and vice versa. Now, the other thing I did notice, or I did mention earlier, is I'm running a mil-spec trigger in this, and there's a reason for that. One, again, just trying to make things a little bit harder on myself. Is the trigger pull like gonna make or break you when it comes to training? Absolutely not. I think the grip is a lot more important. But that being said, it makes things a little bit harder because I'm used to using geyser triggers or like a nice, you know, Radiant trigger in my Mod 1 or something like that. So this makes things a tad bit harder. Now, this being said, I can still easily rip 12, 13, 14, 15 splits out of this gun, regardless of the trigger poundage, okay? And that's one thing I've kind of proven to myself and found out about myself by throwing the trigger in this gun. Is like, hey, maybe I don't need to go spend $150 to $200 on every trigger I put in a rifle. I can just slap a mil-spec one in there and I'm good to go. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with this gun, this is an MCX upper and this is a mil-spec lower. Okay, so I had to put the adapter piece on the back and that you have to use either a MCX trigger or the Geisley MCX trigger or a mil-spec trigger. Those are the only ones that have a tall enough hammer in them to deactivate the firing pin safety on the MCX bolt. I had a Geisley G2S in here, and I went to go to the range and shoot it and zero it, and the gun wouldn't fire, okay? And I took it to our gunsmith here, Dylan, and he's like, hey dude, you gotta run a mil-spec trigger in this at the very least, because that's the only thing that has a tall enough hammer, okay? So lesson learned there. Hopefully that's a good nugget for you guys that are gonna maybe build something like this. Now you guys also notice too, probably through a multitude of my videos now, I'm always running Edgar Sherman design slings. To me, these are the best like price quality to use ratio. These are not crazy heavy, like they're not triple stitched with a giant pad on them. The handle to loosen and tighten it is a reasonable size. It doesn't get caught up on stuff like thresholds and all that. And to me, I feel like the price is easily justifiable. They're not asking for $1 million for these slings. These are like $40, $50, $60 slings depending on which camo pattern you get and stuff. So to me, this is like almost an always I put on every rifle. And then the other thing to like note too here is bring a handful of different other slings like the Magpul ones or maybe the Blue Force Gear ones, and they're good slings, okay? But to me, this pull handle has been the best. Like, I don't know what it is, but this just does it for me, okay? Again, setting all this up is personal preference. You guys might like a M16A2 sling on your rifles because that's just what fits your needs. Now, I feel like a good thing to address on around the sling is like sling location, right? There are people that like to run the sling attachment point up to here, typically in front of where they're going to be running their offhand grip, and they do that for mostly for recoil control reasons. I personally do not use a sling for recoil control. I use a sling to hold the rifle, and that is the only role I needed to fulfill. So to me, having a sling in these 2 points right here, for the rear point, I like to put it right where the castle nut would be. Like obviously there's not a castle nut in this rifle, it's technically an MCX. So I run it at a point in where the castle nut would be, okay? And then I also just put it right up here. And the reason why I like to do that, I do not like to attach slings to stocks, and I'll show you guys why here real quick. So even extending all this stock all the way out, going into high ready with it, pulling the stock over my shoulder, or doing any manipulations with the gun, if the sling is attached here, I constantly have to like deal with a mounting issue, because when I go back to the shoulder, sometimes that sling will stick like behind the stock, or it'll get wrapped up around the stock, and then it just ends up pulling on you, and it gets really annoying. So to me, I want to have the attachments points at the two closest inner points of the rifle, which is like wherever the castle nut would be, and then also on the most inner point of the rail. That allows me to manipulate the gun in the way that I want to manipulate it. This being said, do you need to set up a sling like this? Absolutely not. You can put on the stock. People have been doing it for years. That's a preference for some. It's not a preference for me. I feel like you kind of get the best of both worlds. I'm not much of a single point guy, but they at least hold the rifle or like sub gun in a place that is comfortable. I feel like you're getting the best of both when you attach it at these particular points with a 2-point sling, because then you can really take the sling, suck it up into you, and then if you are just hanging out the range, or if you have to go do something with your hands, the rifle is staying in a place where it's manageable. It's up on your chest. It's not dragging on your feet or on your knees or something like that. So to me, this is a superior way to do it. Now the grip. Some of you might notice like, dang dude, that grip is like kind of got an aggressive angle. It kind of does, okay, but this being said, this bump in the back really helps with reloads. And for those of you that have shot an MCX, you guys know like these are not light guns, especially the way I have this gun set up. It is not a light gun. Okay, so that little bump in the back gives me leverage over the rifle for manipulations with the gun, one, and then also for reloads. That is where I've found this grip to prove value to me, is in reloads, and so therefore I keep these on a lot of my guns. I'm at a part in my shooting journey right now where I'm trying to make like that next step up, that next level up, so some of these things I'm doing on purpose to kind of experiment with to see if maybe that's the path for me, and I think it would be beneficial for some people to do that as well. There are some nuanced things on here, like I was talking about, I've pointed out a handful of times in this gun, like maybe the EOTech, like I prefer commonly just a red dot, or the Somo Gear PEC, like hey, is the juice worth the squeeze on a $150 PEC, or maybe the handbrake, removing it and then putting it back on, seeing if there's a difference in behavior in terms of shooting the rifle. Then also the magnifier, right? Like I also mentioned previously that I don't really use these a ton, but I'm gonna try to find value in it and see if the value is actually there for me. This is how this stuff goes. This is a journey. Not every time that I set up a rifle, it stays in that configuration. I may find over time that like this 45-degree button from Unity is just, it's not really what I want out of a light switch, and I might just take it off and replace it with a normal mod button. Or I might find that this handbrake is, it's not really allowing me to pull the gun into the mounting point and then just increase and putting too much leverage on the gun. So I might just take it off to maybe get a better grip angle in terms of wrist angle on the gun. You know, these are just little nuanced things that I might find value in, and I think you guys might find value in if you kind of approach that same mindset. If you train enough with a rifle, I think you're going to come to find that there's always going to be one or two things you change to reach its final form. And this rifle is in the beginning stages of that. There are things that are probably going to be taken off and maybe even put back on, or put on with a different company or with a different approach maybe. And you know, that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. Now, I'm sure some of you with a very keen eye noticed that I was kind of running this tricked out Glock, right? Well, on the front of this tricked out Glock, we have our new Herrington Arms Hacker System, HAQR. Herrington Arms Quick Release is what that stands for. Guys, what this is essentially an ecosystem. Now, you guys will see on the front here, there's a little push button release. You can take this comp off, put a 1/2x28 adapter on, thread your suppressor on. Now you can run your pistol suppressed. And we will also be releasing a weight for the front of it. So for those that don't want to run a comp and immediately throw themselves into open for USPSA, you can now just run that weight and put yourself in the other divisions besides open. Everything you guys see that's cool on this gun was done for me by Defiant Machine Works and the guys over there. They do fantastic and quality work. If you guys want to see more info about this gun, make sure you head over to the main channel. We have tons of shorts that are covering the ins and outs of this gun. This is also my main training pistol, so if you guys want to go down the route of maybe, you know, seeing a training pistol video, make sure you drop a comment down below. So at first we were going to go over a handful of like duty rifles and training rifles. We decided to focus more towards training rifles for this video. There are some correlations between training and duty rifles, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. If you guys would like to see a video like that, make sure you drop a comment down below. And then also make sure you guys head over to our main channel, Herrington Arms. This is our more training specific channel, or more range focused channel. We do a lot more entertainment valued stuff on the other channel, so make sure you guys are following both for updates. If you guys like this video, make sure you like and subscribe.